Institutes were involved in this work. And I'm not going to name, you can see the logos. A lot of people are involved in this. You will see the acknowledgements. It's actually so many people that I lost myself. So, okay, going forward. Let's play a game. Give me a show of hands. How many of you have seen owls? Almost everyone. Almost everyone. Great. So you're familiar with this bird, right? It's active at night. Most of them are active at night. Now tell me, have you seen these owls? Any one of these? No, not you, Vishnu. Not the people who are like, scientists or will be giving talks, not those people. Not you, David, not definitely not you, I'm not going there. Okay, the last benches, yeah, I can see that one girl, yes. Which owl do you recognize? Okay, she is still figuring out. All right, I'll give you one more clue. I'm going to play the call of an owl, okay? And maybe you can recognize what bird it is. Can you hear that? Okay. I'll get 2 minutes extra for this. Just I'll play it once again. Okay. Does it sound familiar? Huh? Does it sound familiar? How many of you think it's familiar call? Okay. Now can you tell me which bird it is out of those three? Exactly, exactly. It's a spotted owlet, the middle one. Okay, this is the bird. And it's a very common bird in urban areas. In many of the areas you will find this bird is very common. Even at backyard, evening times you will listen to this bird. Great. We are going, going ahead. It's a great audience. Thanks a lot. So, forest owlet, spotted owlet, and jungle owlet. Three owls I'll be mainly focusing on, but then we have some more, right? So now there are more owls on the screen. I'm going to play the call again. Okay. So can you identify this call? How many of you? Not you. David. Yes? Which owl is it out of those three? The third one, yes. That is a jungle owlet. Okay? Now there are no more puzzles. Leave it. So barred owlet, little owl, and jungle owlet. So now we introduce ourselves to 6 different species of owlets. Okay? Small owls. Spotted owlet, forest owlet, jungle owlet, Asian barred owlet, little owl, and then one more, again jungle owlet is there in the same slide. So there are 5 species of owls, right? Now, what is very interesting about these owls is that where do they occur today? Now you see these small owlets or small owls, and the maps basically show where they are found. The red color basically shows where they are right now. Okay, this is the distribution polygons. And you can see the 3 species of owls, which is forest owlet, the left one, the middle one, jungle owlet, and the right one, which is spotted owlet. They all occur in a very specific, range, which is the central India. So they are overlapping in distribution in central India. Now the question is that not all of them are having the same distribution range. Some are having very narrow, some are having very large distribution range, right? If you look at spotted owlet, it is pan India. It is almost covering the Indian subcontinent, whereas the jungle owlet is mainly in India and Sri Lanka. Spotted owlet is not there in Sri Lanka. Okay, and the forest owlet is only in the central India, and that is also very patchy. So the question we ask is, how come these three different species of owlets, though they are looking similar, they are having similar shapes and sizes, their diet might be overlapping, how can you have some species which are highly restricted, some species are widespread? So the question here is that why this is happening today. But let me go a little bit ahead and tell you that these owlets are important from a conservation point of view, especially the forest owlet, which is an endangered animal, endangered bird, and it is also the Schedule 1 species in Wildlife Protection Act. So that basically means permits is an issue. But then you have to work with different people who has permits, and then we can collect data. But we have this one species of owl which is very interesting, which is endangered, which needs a lot of data to go in to understand its conservation action that we can initiate for this species. Just going back to the previous slide, when I was researching about these owls, I also got to know that why forest owlet is called as forest owlet and why jungle owlet is called as jungle owlet. Can anyone give me any reasons for this? What is the difference between forest and jungle? Area of habitat, the composition of vegetation. Okay, so the forest owlet occurs in mainly teak-dominated areas, and we call it as a teak forest because you see teaks everywhere, teak trees. Whereas the jungle owlet is mainly in the moist deciduous, evergreen, semi-evergreen forest areas where you have mixed species. So the jungle is more complex, ecosystem as such compared to the forest ecosystem. That is why the names are given like that. And spotted owlet is just because it has spots. Okay, and you see it is sitting in a wall, right? So that's a very typical habitat. Anyway, so I was talking about these three owls because they overlap in central India. But while we were studying them, we got to know that there is one more owl which overlaps with these other owls, which is the little owl, which is the fourth one in this slide. Okay, so this little owl is mainly found in Himalayan regions in India, and then it is overlapping with spotted owlet and parts with jungle owlet. So when we were studying, we also got to know that little owl might be again a very interesting species to look at, the biogeography of all these owls. So now question is very simple. We are asking why the species are overlapping in their distribution and why some species are having restricted distribution and some are having wider distribution. So the answers could be in the ecological studies or the evolutionary studies as we go ahead. And it also needs to check the genetics of these, how taxonomically these species are spread out, as well as looking at the past climatic fluctuations, if they had an impact on today's distribution of these species. So there is a chapter on genetics. I'm not going to go there. Okay, this is a very short story I'm going to talk to you. So we will just focus on the past climate and how that might have shaped today's distribution of these owls. Okay, so let me discuss a little bit about how was the recent past climate. Okay, so there are three different time snapshots we are looking at. The first one is called as last interglacial, which was around 120 to 140 thousand years back. So it's like 120,000 years back. Okay, you can start imagining how planet Earth would have been, and it was more warmer than today. It had a higher global sea level. Okay, and the lesser ice sheet. So you can see the fauna. There is a pictorial representation of the fauna of that time, last interglacial. The second was, I think everyone knows about it because most of you have seen those movies called Ice Age. Okay, it was a last glacial maxima, 20,000 years back, where when woolly mammoth roamed around the Earth, and there were larger ice sheets. It was colder than today, and lower sea level, so there are a lot of land exposed as such. So this was last glacial maxima around 20,000 years back. And then the present time period, where you see the present fauna, and it's warmer and humid in parts. So in the recent 1 lakh years, there has been at least 3 different dramatic changes that has happened to global environment, okay, global climate as such, which we know of, for which there might exist a lot of evidence, and there is also data available for that. So we thought that we will reconstruct the distribution of these animals, which will match to these timelines, and then we'll see how the distributions might have changed over time. Okay, so moving ahead, we use something called as the climatic niche models. Now this is a very fancy thing as such, but logically what it does, it basically finds out why certain species are occurring in certain areas. So for example, as Vishnudas mentioned, that species are referring to climate, as in the precipitation and the rainfall and the temperature regime in which they can operate, right? If it's too much of rainfall or too much of temperature, they will try to avoid those areas and they will fly away, or they may die off, right? So every species has that climatic domain in which it occurs, and it will have an optimal domain. It will also have near optimal or away from optimal kind of areas. So if we can know the climatic domains of any species, we can actually model where it might occur if there is suitable climate, right? So we are not talking about geographical distribution, we are talking about suitable climate, right? So for humans also, there is a temperature range in which we feel better. There is a temperature range, there is a rainfall range wherein we feel better, right? People do not exist at very extremes. So we can also model human, dimension as such. So the idea is we take the climate database, we model the species distribution for today, and then we back project that same climatic distribution in the older climatic, data. So the idea is the species will not change its response to the climate. Okay, if you like 30 degrees Celsius today, I think 1 lakh years back also you liked 30 degrees Celsius. This is an assumption, it might be wrong, okay? But for these kind of studies, we have assumptions. So based on that, the first thing was to collect data about the species GPS, GPS location, geolocations. So we had to go to the field and collect data about all these different species that I'm talking about. And of course, this data has to be complemented with secondary data because one person cannot be everywhere. So we also used secondary data extensively in this. I will talk about that later. And we use different climatic layers to model the distribution of the species. Okay, so we call it as climatic niche model, CNM. So after those CNMs were made, we back projected those CNMs and then we analyzed, some parts of it. So I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritties of how these algorithms work and all that. Maybe, we can talk about it later. But we went to the field, we started collecting data. And as you can see on the slides, a lot of pictures. So this is a very typical central Indian landscape. You can see how the teak trees and all. We also used automated sound recorders in parts, and you see that this one owl over here, this is forest owlet. It is giving a call back to our call that we played. So again, a lot of you will understand that when you work on owls, it's very difficult to sight them. They are vocal, but when you go to the field, perhaps you will not listen to them. First of all, they are nocturnal, right? Only one species is diurnal. This forest owlet is mainly active at daytime. So we can hear it, but again, it's a rare bird. So many times you have to play the calls and then you have to find out if they are there or not. There are controversies about call playbacks. I will not go into those details. But here we had permission and we used parts of call playback to detect the owls. So these are some of the pictures, and so that's Dr. Shomita Mukherjee, my PhD guide. She was also there in the field and she was looking for owls. We collected a lot of data as we go ahead. And we went to different landscapes. It was in Chhattisgarh, as Vishnudas mentioned. You can see him working there. We also collected some blood samples from some jungle owlets when we were there. You can see that bird held in his hand. So the bird is very happy actually, I don't know why, but the owls are very cool. When they are trapped in the mist net and you are working with them, they are really, really cool. So it's as if they want to do this. Anyway, so we collected a lot of data, and we also collected data from eBird and iNaturalist, because without them, we cannot survive, people like us who work on distribution models. But when we collected the secondary data, there were a lot of biases in the data. As mentioned by Ashwin yesterday, that there are biases. From some areas you have more data, some areas you have less data, okay? So that's one. And secondly, sometimes people keep the e-bird on and they just move on. So it could be like 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, they are moving and the bird is located somewhere else and the person has gone to somewhere else, some other position. So we looked at all these things and then we curated that data. We basically had a short listing of the data based on some geolocation accuracy, based on the time duration, based on some ambiguity, and we reduced or we made those data set much smaller. So for spotted owlet, we collected around 18,545 points, but eventually we used only 6,000 points out of it. So the acceptance percentage was very low for the actual modeling purpose. For you see all the three species of owls, for forest owlet we did not rely on eBird and iNaturalist because people find a forest owlet in urban areas as per eBird. They don't give the location, exact location. So it was completely based on the primary data and we had 50 such points which were validated points. Okay, so based on these points and the climatic layers, we modeled the climatic niche models. And this is the big bomb that I'm going to drop on you. So this will take some time, okay? Let's go one by one. Now this map basically shows what has happened in the last 1,20,000 years till now, okay? So focus only at one species right now, the forest owlet, the first row of this. So the first of the panel, which is A, is basically last interglacial. All the red color basically shows the suitable climatic areas, not the geographical distribution, only the suitable climatic areas. So during the last interglacial, forest owlet had much wider suitable climatic areas. In the last glacial maxima, which was the colder period, the woolly mammoth period, at that time the forest owlet had much narrower distribution. And again, in the mid-Holocene, which was 6,000 years back, which is similar to today's climate, it had again a expanded kind of a version of climatic suitability. And again, today if you see, it is much narrower, okay? So the forest owlet, this one species has gone into expansion reduction, these kind of cycles, with the climate, change or climatic fluctuations. If you come to the second row now, which is the spotted owlet, you see a progressive expansion. The spotted owlet is expanding. There is not considerable reduction or not, it's not like breaking down continuously like the forest owlet. It is eventually expanding. Same is the case with jungle owlet. Jungle owlet, in the beginning you see very little climatic suitable areas, but then eventually it has gone up. If you look at little owl, in India, again, it's not in India much, like it's only in the Himalayas. So only that part you see. There is another slide about which, on which I'll talk about little owl. But if you compare the owls, all the different owls have different kind of responses, mainly the forest owlet and the spotted owlet and the jungle owlet, right? So the forest owlet was at loss. Now what does it mean? That when you have suitable climatic areas which are much wider, so you can imagine that there is good forest which is much wider, right? And due to the climate change or the climatic fluctuation, that forest is getting fragmented in a way. Now when the fragments start happening, maybe the species are moving away or getting trapped or dying off. But when again there is a connectivity, then perhaps that species cannot rebound. They will not expand the way we imagine, okay? And that is why maybe in the next phase of climatic fluctuation, again the forest owlet was at loss, it was getting restricted again. So these multiple fluctuations has resulted, this is what we feel, multiple fluctuations might have given very little scope for the forest owlet to actually expand in different regions. But whereas for the other species, which were which could respond to different type of climatic regimes, they could adapt to these and they expanded. Okay, so this is one observation that we have from these pictures. Now the second result about the little owl, the owl which is more Palearctic in distribution, mostly in the European areas and the Himalayas, you can see. So if you look at this much wider distribution, right? So it has actually, it has a response to much wider range of temperature, but it is all colder temperature, not the tropical one, okay? Not like the spotted owlet. So here you see that there was a very important impact of last glacial maxima, which is the coldest, right? So the little owl also, though it is a colder species, it had to come down southwards while it was during the LGM, the last glacial maxima. And then eventually it expanded. So on the mountain tops, what we are seeing, what Vishnudas was showing us, that due to the warming of the temperature, animals will tend to move upwards, right, in the mountains. But here is another, the other side of it, where the temperatures were much colder, the species actually moved southwards toward warmer regions. And which is a very typical when bird migration also happens. During winter seasons, birds migrate southwards. So this is another pattern that we recovered with these species distribution models. The third result is looking at how each species is responding to the overall climatic heterogeneity. Now, what is the climatic heterogeneity? It is how much in one pixel, how much climate is changing, or how much is the change over many, many years of time. Okay. So if the climate is stable, then the vegetation will remain stable. If there is a lot of fluctuation, then the vegetation will keep changing. Okay. So you see, for all the species of owls, from last interglacial till current time, over a period of time, they are referring to more and more homogeneous habitat and lesser heterogeneous habitat. This is a very common trend you see in all these owls, right? From LIG to current. For example, if you look at forest owlet, at LIG the climatic heterogeneity is much higher to the current, it is much compressed and much lower. So the species are tending to move towards more homogeneous, climatically homogeneous areas. Okay, so that they can, those could be the optimal habitats for them. And each species will have a different types of optimal habitats. That is how they are fitting into. All right, so this is what it looks like. And then finally, if you look at for different time periods, overall, considering the last interglacial, LGM, mid-Holocene or today the species are located in perfectly climatically stable zones. Okay, this is also a hypothesis that more endemic species are located towards more climatically homogeneous areas. Okay, that's what we see. I mean, if we look at the Western Ghat endemics, they are located in a very narrow areas. And if something happens to those areas climatically, then the species will be at loss. This is exactly what is repeated here, but at a larger time span at a global level by the owls. Okay. Now, not too many graphs. I'm ending all the graphs here. Now let's move on to where are these owls today and why. This was the question we started, right? So the question was very simple, as I said, that it requires an ecological explanation, evolutionary explanation. We talked about evolutionary part of it, the macro evolutionary part. So there was definitely some impact of these climatic fluctuations that we see, right? And which is also evident now because climate is changing. We are in Anthropocene. We have been seeing that there are a lot of ill impacts of climate. So it was past climatic fluctuations were again a major influencer for the species distribution. Second point is ecological reasoning, which is in the contemporary time. So if you look at the prey base, how the prey base of the birds are shifting, these are predators. If there is a competition among themselves, all these species, like for example, spotted owlet, jungle owlet, forest owlet, they are in one place. So they must be competing with each other. So what is that dynamics like? Then you have local threats. There is forest fire, there is hunting, poaching, which is happening. So how does that impact all these birds? Then you have level of protection. So whether they are into protected area, whether they are into reserve forest, whether they are into territorial regions or in urban rural setting. So at all those level of protection, perhaps their prey bases are changing, the vegetation is changing. And finally, a lot of anthropogenic factors, including us. So whenever we are there, perhaps the owls would not like to be. But then only one owl, spotted owlet, they are human commensals. They like humans because humans bring rats and they like those and the insects. So, there is a connection also. So yeah, I mean, we are also impacting their distribution as such. So studies are still happening. We are working on now different aspects of this. Mainly, we are modeling the occupancy of the species. Some studies was done in Robin's lab later. We were also deciphering immediate threats to them. And there's a lot of work in progress, and that's why we need a lot of people like you to join hands and work together on owls. Because again, we are a very neglected taxa. So we need people to work on owls, definitely. So with that, I will just acknowledge all the people who worked with us. This was a large list of acknowledgement, as I mentioned. But before that, before I end my talk, I have to give a shout out to all the Chataru Ullu lab members who are working with me, and we have grown like a big family now, or almost 25 people who work with me now. And specifically, we have 3 posters, down there. So by Debangini Roy, one of my PhD students, she works on owl rescues and what people think about owls, perception of people regarding owls. Then we have Krishnendu Sarkar, he is presenting about broadtail grassbird. Again, the poster is there. And we have Inshia, she works on forest owlets in Melghat Tiger Reserve. So we work on dragonflies and owls, and that's why the name Chaturullu Lab. You can scan the QR code and get to know us better. And just one last announcement before I close. So we are having this one conference called Enviro Summit, which happened last year, and it's like a biannual thing. This will be a hybrid conference, which will happen in Pune in MIT WPU. So if you are interested, you can submit your abstract, but before that, scan the QR and then register your interest, and we'll get back to you. Okay, you can take a snapshot of this if you want, and later on you can scan the QR. It's not going to ask for any money, okay? It's just a Google form. All right, so thank you everyone for the patient listening. And this talk on Moong, I guess, was very well pursued by all of you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Pankaj. It was just like owls flying, very gently you started, and very gently you concluded, and it was about the owlets. See, you worked in that region. In our area, we did not work that much on owls because they are nocturnal. It is not easy to move in the Kerala, the southern region forest in the night. There are elephants, there are sloth bear, there are many other animals. But you worked in an area where there are no elephants, not there. So you can work. So that is why we cannot think about it. Yeah, because the nocturnal birds, if you want to work, you should be very careful, Why we are not working on these nocturnal birds? Because elephants and sloth bear are around. Okay. Yeah. It's a tiger. Tigers are there. Yeah, Central India tigers are there. But still, okay. So that was it. Thank you very much for the general presentation. And now we can discuss about it. And so just one question, I will ask questions. You have seen Vishnudas' presentation, So how that climate change occurred between that Western Ghats, maybe up to Biligir-Rangan and to Eastern Ghats, and how these species which are there in the Himalaya and Northeast are there in the as distinct species. So you were talking about that climate change occurred some 11 million years back or so. So same kind of climate change might have occurred here also, in that belt. So when you presented, I was having a feeling that everything radiated from that region. Because why you chose that area, one particular species is rediscovered from that area. So that way you had gone to see the overlapping. Because other species are there, south also. One, the spot owlet is not there in Sri Lanka. Okay, that did. Whenever you speak, we have an impression that the owlet population evolved somewhere around there and radiated from there, moving to different parts. Such an impression is it true? Or?
No. So I did not talk about the evolution of owls as such. I just talk about the impact of climate change on them.
Okay. How can you relate it to the things actually spoken by Vishnudas also?
Right.
Because the change happened simultaneously,
Correct.
So that. Maybe Satpura hypothesis, you did not mention that name, I think. It is Satpura hypothesis put forth by Hora in 1940s itself. Because there was a drying up some 11 million years back. So that is why we have some species in the Western Ghats, in the Alpine region. And a similar climatic region we have, and there are related species.
Right.
So here how it is influencing your owlets?
These owls they diversified around 5 to 6 million years back.
Okay.
And Athini group, the Athini Brahma, that is spotted owlet, and the forest owlet is now into Athini group, Athini genus. So all the Athini genus is mainly African genus. Okay. So in fact, Athini members are in Africa. Right now, in Africa there is no owl. Only there is one in Madagascar, which is Athini superciliaris, and there is one in America, Athini cunicularia, the burrowing owl. So the Athini genus was once thought to be a very widespread genus, but then eventually a lot of them died off. And Athini noctua is the only one which is the most widespread, the little owl. So Athene brahma, which is the spotted owlet, which is Indian. Athene blaviti, which is the forest owlet, again an Indian one. So all the only two species of Athene are in India. Otherwise, other Athenes are either in America or in Europe.
But the name itself is from Greek mythology or Roman
Greek mythology.
Greek
yeah.
mythology.
Because
Okay.
Noctua was the first, which was first described. Athene Noctua was first described, and then later on they described other.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And the Glossidium, the jungle owlets, they are the Glossidium. So they are younger species than Athene. They came in around 3 million years back. That is the diversification in the genetics. That's what we have found.
Okay. Thank you. So, any more questions?
Thanks, Pankaj. Very lovely presentation.
Thank you, brother.
Just could you please relate your findings from the historical distribution of forest owlet to the current conservation of what it means for the current conservation of the forest owlet?
Thank you. Great question. In fact, so this presentation, this talk was mainly about the climate. Okay. And we have done future climate scenarios in which how does the forest owlet fares or other species fare, for example. And the future is not very good, if the way the climate is changing for forest owlet at least. For jungle owlet also, it's going to get affected because of the vegetation will get affected, but spotted owlet will actually succeed because there is more human expansion. It is a human commensal species, right? So for forest owlet, definitely we have done those scenarios. I did not show it to you now because it's in future, and if my story is incorrect, people can come back to me. But the past stories, I'm telling you the past stories, and perhaps they may or may not be correct, and nobody will, judge me for that. Okay, the jokes apart, yes, but for the forest owlet, the main thing is, today's conservation action planning that we have been doing. So many people are working, but still we have not figured out what exactly is that matters for this owl. And it's really sad, because everyone is trying hard for forest owlet. There is so much of funding available from government. Even right now we are having a project, but we are finding it in protected area, in the core tiger area, as well as in the buffer areas where, there are villages and it coincides with spotted owlets over there. So, our previous studies, we found that there's a lot of overlap, niche overlap with jungle owlet and forest owlet compared to spotted owlet and other owls. But wherever you have less jungle owlets, you will have more forest owlet. But that only in central India. And the other thing is that we are not able to tag them, like satellite telemetry and all these things. We don't know about movement of these owls because of the restrictions, Schedule 1 species and endangered species. So there has been newer and newer sighting of the forest owlet, as you know. There was in Daman, Diu and Daman. Then they were found in Dangs recently in Tansa Wildlife Sanctuary in Maharashtra. So they have been finding in areas where they were not expected earlier. And that is, where the problem basically comes in. So it's becoming like really complicated to understand for this one species, but future climate scenarios do not look good for forest owlet.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for a very passionate and wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And okay, I am Brigadier Rajaram, ex-army person. I am not an expert
brigadier
in
and
any
Canada
field except genuinely interested in conservation. I am not an expert at all. So what I was reminded of is a graphic by Attenborough of a surface of the Earth over, say, from 1,20,000 years back, you have come till, and how the human species, graphically, he did a time lapse.
Right.
We have invaded the entire surface of this planet right now. And the most important thing is right now we are on the exponential portion. As we are progressing in time, the timeline, the human invasion of the surface of the earth is exponentially, alarmingly growing without regard for the other species. As we have all, the theme of this whole this thing is that only. So the impact of this particular aspect on your study, would you think it is significant? Thank
Yes,
you.
definitely. So what you are saying is, we are expanding a lot. Urbanization is happening rapidly. A lot of areas which were wilderness areas now getting converted either into farmlands or into rural and urban setting. And that definitely impacts the species which are out there. But some species have come out to be, very successful in this changing landscape. So for example, barn owls and the spotted owlet. When we talk about owls, So they are the two human commensals which are actually more successful in human dominated landscape compared to the forest or the jungle landscape where you have replacement by other species. So if this trend continues, definitely some species will be more, successful. Like we see when urbanization happens, there is a homogenization of the species. So you see crows everywhere, you see common mynas everywhere, you see rose-ringed parakeets everywhere. So this is a homogenization that happens when areas are converted into human-dominated landscape. So some species definitely will do good, some species will not do so good. Yes.
Okay, anyone? David.
Hi Pankaj, good to see you in Wayanad. Okay, the question is, I spent around 14 years in that landscape, but the thing is, what I could understand, the Satpura landscape, it is south of Satpuras you will see the forest owlet. You don't see it north, even not in Sal landscape or something. Is there any specific of, are they restricted to only teak forest? If it's so, what is the reason for it? If you try to pitch in with your past climatic, all these niche models and all, does it then it should be restricted to only that? The habitat specific means it's only in teak forest, right? So I think, does it match with your the past the studies?
So definitely, David, close up. Okay. So yeah, I mean, very good observation. We were, thinking about this a lot, that there is a Sag-Sal boundary, and this species is more Sag related, more teak related. So my past climatic fluctuation, this graphic will not talk about it because it is much broader and it is, much older as such, 6,000 years back, and today we are comparing. But what I feel personally when I am on the field is there has been a history of plantation in this area. Okay, this was a forest department, like during British time, this was forest department, and they basically did a lot of teak plantation for timber purpose. So this area, which was perhaps a heterogeneous area earlier, has been converted into a plantation area or the forest area. And that perhaps gave a lot of opportunity for species like forest owlet to expand in certain areas. But if you look at today its distribution, no, this Satpura should not be a barrier is what I feel, because it is expanded into Western Ghats now. Northern Western Ghat it is found. So the mountains should not be blocking it is what, we personally feel. Still, we are figuring out, we are not understanding whether it is the same population which is moving into different parts, or are they really expanding in population, and can we now convert them from endangered to vulnerable and so on. So those things we still don't know because we don't have population estimation. We don't have genetic data on this individual, and we have not done satellite telemetry yet.
Are you guys rediscovered in Chhattisgarh? Is it records? Is there any?
We went to Chhattisgarh, but we did not find it over there. In Odisha also we went, we did not find it. The previous, locality records, taxonomic locality records.
Okay, any more questions? Please tell your name and.
Yeah, my name is Anup. I was in Bangalore for some time, now settled in Wayanad. While in Bangalore, I heard one of the seasoned birders saying, during election time in Andhra Pradesh, the bird population in and around Bangalore disappears. Any data? No. I think with the eBird data and the iNaturalist data, it's possible to have a check.
The bird population, I'm not sure how.
You are asking
how
the
we
general
can-
bird population,
General
not on
bird
owl.
No, sorry, owl.
Owl population.
Owl population.
During the election time, what was the election time?
Andhra elections, whether it is assembly or Lok Sabha elections, Andhra in particular,
Okay.
I believe they sacrifice owls
Yeah.
to make sure that they win the elections.
Yeah, that's possible. So owls are sacrificed a lot for various reasons. In Diwali time, their trade basically increases, and there has been documented evidence about it. Debangini is here. She will also. That's her basically PhD thesis, so she will be the right person to talk about it. But we have seen it that for witchcraft, for black magic, owls are used, and there are evidences where forest owlets are also being used for those. Even people eat them the regular basis. So all these things are happening to all these species, and that's why that could be a reason why.
Yeah, still they survived.
Yeah.
Somehow. Okay. Yeah, they will.
Good afternoon.
Please, your name.
My name is Geetanjali. I'm an amateur birder. Still lots to learn, and people like you doing wonderful job of teaching us also after doing lot of research. My question is from your map that I could see, forest all, your map shows Maharashtra mainly. Is there still some left in central portion, that is Madhya Pradesh, because a lot of teak trees are there?
Yeah. So this
Thank
is
you.
thank you. So this is on the boundary of Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Madhya Pradesh. So it is only on the tri-junction of tri-states. That is the main region where it is Melghat Tiger Reserve, and in towards the Madhya Pradesh it is into Betul and Khandwa districts. And now it has moved towards the Western Ghat part. So now it is into Tansa Wildlife Sanctuary in Dangs in Gujarat, and in Nashik area also it's found. So now that's what we are not understanding, how whether it's the same population which is moving or it is different species, different birds which are moving. So there are a lot of confusion about it.
I just want to ask you whether the climatic data that you showed as of now, is the bird distributed in all the regions that you have mapped as ideal for this species, or is it restricted to some parts?
No. So it's only climatically suitable area. The bird may or may not be there. So we are just looking at the climatically suitable area. It is not the geographical distribution. 50%, I mean, we need to actually go and check in all these areas.
Then how you decided this climate is suitable for this species and not for that? Why?
So it is based on current climate.
Is it?
Okay, so what we have done, the current data we know, right, where the birds are located. So based on that grids data we took, and then we understood that this is the suitable climate for the bird, and it must have been suitable like that for many earlier years also. So there is an assumption. Right.
Okay, that was the last. You want to ask one? That is the last question.
Hi Pankaj.
Hello.
It was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
So I am Dhanesh. I am also a researcher. So I was wondering whether these forest owlets are only distributed in this monoculture plantations, or are they also have been found in all these dry deciduous forests, other parts also. So I was wondering, are these populations are supported only by these plantations which have been planted by the British, or
yeah. So majorly thanks a lot. So majorly they are into teak dominated areas, but we have found them in mixed forest as well. In the tiger country we find them where you have old growth tree, which is the very old growth kind of plants having very high girth, and there are meadows. There are a lot of open grassland areas where tigers also operate, the same area where the forest owlet also operates. And we just had a very close encounter very recently in one of our surveys, that we were surveying for forest owlet, but you never know, there was a tiger stalking to us, from the bushes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you should be very careful, because we need your service.
And the tiger too.
And I hope there are no man-eaters there. Okay. Okay. And the tigers also want to survive, Okay. So that was the last question asked. Okay, thank you, Pankaj, for your wonderful presentation and the wonderful work you have done. Yes, surely we will have to congratulate him for his work, and lots of questions can be asked again. So if time permits, we will make it in the after presentation by Jobin. Okay, now I invite Jobin. Jobin Varghese, and why are birds where they are, about their biogeography only, distribution pattern and all. Okay, he will be speaking about the birds occur worldwide, at not species inhabit every region. What limits the distribution? That is the main question he is asking. And it will discuss the hypotheses such as the topographic complexity, energy availability, and climatic stability. Focusing on the Shola skylands, it will illustrate how human alteration like timber tree invasions disrupt ecosystem boundaries, enabling forest to bird expansion but reducing grassland species, offering insights into how historical and ecological factors together shape bird distribution. I think in this we will get more answers for the questions we were asking during. So he will be answering more questions, I think. So Jobin Varghese is a landscape architect turned into landscape ecologist. Very good. And he is an ecologist currently serving with the postdoc serving as a postdoctoral fellow in the NCBS Bangalore and affiliated to TAF for Mumbai. Okay, his research primarily falls under the field of ecology